we just move that slide off, please? Thank you. Great. Well, that's been really good. We've got some time for some questions now, but what I'll do is perhaps pick up on some of the themes that have struck me as I've listened to those three excellent talks, for which I'm sure everybody here is grateful. I think it's very common, the messaging really picking up on from the session this morning, the amount of technological change. This morning in particular focused on the threat of that change, and we continued the theme of that, but we went one step further as well, and also heard a bit more about the opportunities through the convergence of electronic warfare, signals intelligence, cyber, spectrum management. So what does that mean for the military? Well, it means really that we need to adapt to this technology. It's inevitable the technology is changing. Yes, it has a threat, but it also has opportunities for us. But we must take care, as we've just heard, against the many risks. So how do we deal with it as warfighters? Well, we think about doctrine and policies and the integrated staff processes in order to implement what we're learning from this rapidly changing convergence and technology change. And of course, there is collective responsibility. I think every one of our three speakers has made a point about the need to work in alliance with militaries and alliance with the civil sector. So very common theme. So I'll leave those thoughts hanging as my initial observations from those three talks, and I'll now open the floor for the next 15 minutes for questions. Come on, don't be shy.
So if you are not asking any question, it means either you have understood everything or you have not understood anything.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentations conducted. I'm General Rovell. I'm the Head of Research and Development in the Army. So my question is common to all the panel, including the chair. So in the context of cyber warfare, what organizational changes or initiatives have been originated in your respective armies to mitigate or to encounter possible threats in the future?
Thank you. So what I'll do is ask each of the three panelists to briefly answer that, and we'll do it in the order that you spoke, if that's okay. So we'll start with you, please, General.
Okay. In the case of India, we have the national cert. I'm sure Sri Lanka also must be having a national cert. And from there we have the specific service-based certs of Army, Navy, Air Force, which basically take care of all the cybersecurity part of this thing of their own respective networks. Okay, so at the broad, you have a national cert, which lays down the overall guidelines for the nation as such. Within the framework of those national guidelines, the three services define their own certs, their own policies. And we also have a tri-services kind of a cert, which takes care of all the joint issues. So in a lot of theaters, we have tri-services operations and tri-services this thing. So that takes care of this part. The overall cybersecurity of the Indian Army as such, the SONC takes care of the defensive portions this thing. And similarly, at the nation, this thing, there are critical assets defined, there are non-critical assets defined, and there are specific organizations which are taking care of the critical assets and non-critical assets. Based on the same, the Indian Army has also defined its critical assets, non-critical assets, and there are specific SOPs and guidelines to take care of them. We also have something called crisis management plans. We have our nation's national crisis management plan, and based on the same, we have also evolved service-specific crisis management plans for our respective services networks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For Bang.
Let him complete.
We'll just do the three, if I may, we'll just do the three answers to the question, because we're going to try and answer from each nation's perspective, then I'll come to you next.
For Bangladesh, we have the BD, that means Bangladesh CERT, CERT, Emergency Response. It was initially in 2012 it was organized by the civilians, and then the national frame structured by the BTRC, Bangladesh Telecommunication Regulatory Board or corporations. So they have the commissions, sorry. So they have their the BDSART. So they have their cyber security strategy given in their policy. Then the Digital Security Act in the national level came. But for Army, the Army CERT is there. But the other cases, the CERT is not that exposed because it is just in the initial stage. The IT policies are there, security policies are there, but organizational changes actually are in the process, because we have a Vision 2030, and then these will be gradually happen. At the moment, the Signal Code of Signals is handling all those things, IT, signal affairs as a whole, but gradually it is shifting towards the IT organizations. Thank you.
Sir, specific to Pakistan Army, I will talk. We have new changes in the organization. What we have done is, at the GHQ, General Headquarter level, we have a cyber directorate, which are responsible for two things: issuing our policies and updating, and carrying out the audit of all the headquarters, core headquarters, sir. They carry out a random surprise audit. At the core headquarter level, we known as the cyber security officers, who is basically the brigadier of Corps of Signal, who is actually probably in your organization, I'll call it a brigade commander, signal brigade commander, who is responsible to ensure the security of his own formation. And thirdly, every unit, whether it is an infantry unit or armor unit or signal unit, has a cyber security officer. He has been trained in Military College of Signal so that he can take care of cyber security of his own unit. So we have a layered security mechanism, sir. More so, we have introduced this syllabus, the cyber syllabus, from the basic to the NDU level. So we have started, to inform the common user, the officers, how to take care of these things. So at the GHQ unit and core level, we have reorganized ourselves to safeguard the cyberspace.
Thank you very much. Sir.
I need a small clarification, sir. I think both speakers said that air gap can protect the systems. Do you think with the present development and the technology advancement that air gap can protect the computer systems and the data?
I'm not getting this question. Sorry.
Yeah. Two speakers has elaborated that air gap can protect computer systems. So do you think that present technological advancement and the systems development, that air gap to protect the systems?
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah. You see, technology and anti-technology move hand in hand. And to some extent, yes, air-gapped networks do protect your data. But recent advancements all over the world, some of it in the lab version, some of it in the other domains, have shown that even air-gapped networks can be breached. There are spurious radiations which take place through the various devices. Working PC through his fans, through his power supply, through his motors, through his various other spurious emanations can be picked up in very, very small power, very small bits can be picked up, which can be then reconstructed, and you can get passwords and all that. For that, you have to be very, very close to the particular network where you have to be. It is not so feasible in the TBA. It may be okay in the strategic part of it or in the civil or commercial part of it, but in the TBA it is difficult unless you are very, very close to it. And therefore, what most of us have been alluding to, that the basic vulnerability lies from within. So you have to take care of vulnerabilities from 70% of all vulnerabilities lie within the network. It's only 25 to 30% which are outside. So if you have someone within, it can always be figured out. Today, from fiber, very, very easily a data can be picked up from any optical fiber cable. It's just by a simple cringing kind of machine, it can pick up all the data. So it is possible. But yeah, it's not yet proliferated to the extent that it becomes a proper practice all over the world.
Thank you very much. I hope that's clear. Yes, please, another question.
One more question. Now, as a main component or main element of national power, being in the military, what would be the role of respective militaries in your countries in combating future cyber threats that your country would meet in general as a country, and how have you planned to address or fulfill those?
Question? I couldn't get it.
Sorry, could you just say that one more just to help the panel members? Just
Because now maybe as an element of national power, so we call it diplomacy, military, intelligence and economy, those things. So then in case if the nation, respective nations meet a national level cyber threat, so what would be the military role in your respective countries in protecting maybe your critical infrastructure, whatever it is? Have you got a role in that, or what does your governments expect from you in that context?
thank you. Yes, I think I'll open that to panel members in terms of whether you think your particular militaries work within purely the military sphere or whether they are being asked by sovereign states to assist your government level.
Okay, it depends on each nation to nation. For example, US has declared cyber as its critical asset, that any attack on the cyber this thing will be construed as an act of war. Now that's a policy of United States. Similarly, every nation may declare, I had brought in my lecture also, that first and foremost, if you have to evolve a doctrine within this cyber electronic warfare, you have to declare cyber as an asset to that nation. Then you got to have a national cyber security strategy or a policy going at the national level. That how do you see your cyber framework? How do you see your cyber domain? Is it such a critical asset that an act of cyber attack on it is construed as a piece of war or an act of war against the nation? So those are the kind of policies which the nation has to take. And the various services will only follow what the nation has decided.
Maybe, sir, if I correctly understand, yes, we have been given a mandate by the government that in case of any disaster, one is doctrinal aspect, strategy. One is the recovery aspect. In case something happens, we have a role to play, Pakistan Army, to ensure that if there is any cyber attack, how to retrieve the data, how to help the government. So we have a defined role by the parliament, how to help the government.
Okay, thank you. There was the gentleman there in the suit.
I have a comment on the.
Sorry, could you put your mouth nearer the microphone? It's quite hard for us up here.
I have a comment on the question that General Rovell asked regarding the Sri Lankan perspective on the institutional framework that we have. Sri Lanka CERT is the national CERT of Sri Lanka, and we are closely working with CERT India as well as BD CERT in Bangladesh, and we help to set up the BGD eGov CERT for the Bangladesh as well. But compared to other countries, Sri Lanka CERT don't do military network security. All the military network security are done by those tri-forces. But a few years ago, we came up with the concept to set up a tri-forces CERT called Defense CERT under the Ministry of Defense. So there will be 3 teams in each and every forces managing the security of their internal networks, but there will be a common CERT called Defense CERT under the Ministry of Defense to coordinate all the Triforce CERTs. But recently we passed the National Cybersecurity Strategy. We call National Information and Cybersecurity Strategy. Under that, we have proposed the National Information and Cybersecurity Agency. Under that agency, there will be several organizations like sector-based CERTs, Security Operations Center, and CERT, Sri Lanka CERT will also be under that. And there will be policy development bodies. And head of this National Cybersecurity Agency will be representing the Security Council as well. So that is the institutional framework that we have proposed at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we've got time for one more question, I think. Yes, please. Thank you.
Sir, I'm Colonel Mahendra Fernandu, Brigade Command, Armored Brigade. My question is, had there been real-time situations where hackers have intercepted two operations such as ground platform and aerial platform, like drones intercepted by hackers? So I don't know what the answer going to be. If you all can divulge the informations, if it is yes, I would like to manifest my opinion that the cyber warfare believed to be soft power, which would be graduated to hard power by a hacker from nowhere.
Thank you. Yes, I will ask the panel members if they're able to answer the question, but I think you hinted that some people may not be able to talk in open forum about specific examples, so I'll see if anybody would like to take that.
First of all, jamming the airborne platform, you have to be very near. If you get all the equipment statistics, you find that it's not even 500 years. Somewhere it is 100, 150 years. And that's why jamming within the link is becoming very difficult. And nowadays, the cyber, if it is the UAVs flying the air platform, and then they have a radius kind of thing, making a satellite link, probably you have to be very, very pertinent. Only one portion of your link can be taken, not both the links. So the radio links in between the mobile communications and also the cyber links, satellite links, it's very difficult. The chances of the airborne platform, it has to be nearby to you. It is almost the old age being together. So it's very unlikely by the cyberspace to really go for the air and do this kind of things. Thank you. As per the equipment, present day's equipment is concerned, I don't know latest research is going on or not, but the equipments which we see, we experience, we find that it's not very much effective for the UAVs. Thank you.
Okay, as far as the aerial platforms are concerned, each aerial platform normally has three types of linkages. One is the data linkage, through which it passes all the data to the ground control station. One is the control linkages, through which the bird is controlled. And one is the navigation linkage, which could be through C-band radio, could be through satellite navigation, or through any of these things. Most of the time when you try and pick up this signal, it could be through the side lobe, it could be through the main lobe. Main lobe, like rightly is brought out, is difficult to discern and difficult to intercept because it is directly between the bird and the ground control station. But there are instances when the side lobe is available and there are chances of picking it up. And once you pick that up, then yes, a kind of a GPS spoofing or a GPS jamming or a taking control of the bird is feasible. So therefore, what you're trying to allude that the actions in non-kinetic domain giving you results in the kinetic domain is highly feasible, and vice versa also. That actions in kinetic could affect the non-kinetic also. Both these sides are true.
Just to add, sir, it's a war going on between defensive and offensive people. But in today's technology, all the UAVs have a mechanism. If it is not communicating with its base, automatically it will go back to its original position. So rather than spoofing, rather than you are putting him down, if it is not communicating to the base, to the ground station, there is a mechanism in the UAVs, it will go back from where it is taken off. So normally it go base, 90% it will go back to its original, except if you can take control of the system. If you can get control, then you can control and change the pathway of the UAVs. So it's now what is happening. But it's a continuous process, it is an evolving process.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is now approaching the end of session 2. I think that it's been a really good opportunity to hear from the Indian Army, the Bangladesh Army and the Pakistan Army on their perspective, from a regional perspective, on how to deal with the threats and the opportunities of the technology. And I think if I could maybe add my opinion to a lot of the messaging that's come from them from this session, is that it is a collaborative approach is the answer to that question. So to address the change of technology, to address the convergence, to adapt, to deal with the opportunities and the threats is a collaborative approach. It's not just for the Signal Corps, and I'm delighted to see that in the Sri Lankan Army we have such a wide spread of experience and parts of the Army represented here, because that's clearly a recognition by you all that it's everyone's business. So thank you for your contribution, but in particular I'd like you to help me thank the three speakers for this session. Thank you.
Well, friends, that was a very valuable and comprehensive segment of information exchange on cybersecurity, especially with regard to the regional landscape. And we'd now like to officially thank each of our panelists for sharing with us their precious knowledge and skill in this dynamic area. To do the honors of presenting tokens of appreciation, may I invite Military Secretary of Sri Lanka Army and Colonel Commandant of Sri Lanka Signal Corps, Major General Ajit Vijay Singha, to please accompany Major General Ajit Karya Karavana, Deputy Chief of Staff, Sri Lanka Army, as he now presents tokens of appreciation to each of our panelists. Let's put our hands together as we welcome our presenters to the front. We'd like to start off by acknowledging the contribution of our session chair, Major General John Cole, Chief Information Officer, British Army. We'd now like to acknowledge the time and the effort put in by Lieutenant General Rajiv Sabharwal, who is Signal Officer in Chief, Indian Army. Let's put our hands together as we thank him for his time. We'd now like to appreciate the contribution of Major General Hafiz, Signal Officer in Chief, Pakistan Army. And of course, we now place on record our appreciation for Brigadier General Rizwan, Commander 86 Independent Signal Brigade, Bangladesh Army. Thank you once again to each of our panelists, and thank you very much to Major General Ajit Karya Karavana and Major General Ajit Vijay Singha. Friends, on that note, we now break for refreshments. We have about 45 minutes for refreshments because our next segment starts at 4 o'clock.